Good afternoon everyone. Today I am going to discuss about the computer organization subject unit 5. So top part 2. Okay. In the previous video class we have discussed about the multiprocessors and difference between multiprocessor and multi-computers, and these are the block diagrams are the tightly coupled and loosely coupled systems, and this is the interconnecting structures, and these are the several physical connections that interconnections we are having. So this is the time shared common bus and system bus structure for multiprocessor, multi-port memory, cross bus switch, and this is the block diagram of the cross bus switch, multi-state switching network, and omega network, hypercube interconnection. These are we have explained in the previous video class. Now I am going to continue the interprocessor arbitration. So what is mean by arbitration? So the process is shared memory. The processors in a shared memory multiprocessor system request access to common memory or other common resources through the system bus. In other, if no other processor is currently utilizing the bus, the requesting processors may be granted to access immediately. So the requesting processor must wait if another processor is currently utilizing the system bus. So the other processor may request the system bus at the same time. Arbitration must be performed to resolve the multiple contentions for the shared resources. The arbitration logic would be part of the system bus controller placed between the local bus and the system bus. Okay. So in this system bus, so there are two different two types of algorithms are there in this interprocessor arbitration. So that is a static arbitration algorithm and dynamic arbitration algorithm. So in static arbitration algorithm we have again two types, that is a serial arbitration algorithm, arbitration procedure, we can say Desai-Cheney arbitration, and second one is a parallel arbitration logic. So these are the two things which is available in the static arbitration algorithm. Now I am going to discuss about the static arbitration algorithm. First one, that is a serial arbitration procedure. In another name we can say Desai-Chain arbitration. So what is in this? I having the diagram. This is the serial and Desi arbitration. Serial means the processors are connected in the serial form. Okay. So the processors connected at the system bus. So the processors are connected at the system bus are assigned priority according to their position along the priority control line. The devices closest to the priority line is assigned the highest priority, the highest priority. So upper side, if you see that diagram, you have the highest priority at the starting and last at the lowest priority, and these are the processors which is connected to the system bus. So system bus means these arrow marks you are seeing, no? So that is the line that are connected in the system bus are assigned priority according to their position. So depending on the position we are providing the highest priority, lowest priority, that like along with the control line. So the devices closest to the priority line is assigned the highest priority. Each processor has its own bus. Each processor has its each and every processor has its own arbiter logic with a priority in PI and priority outlines are PO. Okay. And the priority out PO of each arbiter is connected to the priority in, okay, of the next priority arbiter. The PI of the highest priority unit is maintained at logic 1 value. The highest priority unit in the system will always receive access to the system bus when it requires it. When it requires it, it is a PI. What is mean by PI? The PI has the of the highest priority unit is maintained at logic 1 value the highest priority unit in the system will always receive access to the system bus when it requires it. Then the PO output for a particular orbiter is equal to 1 if it PI input is equal to 1 and the processor associated with the orbiter logic is not requesting control of the bus. Thus, this is the way the priority is placed to the next unit in the chain. Okay, if the processor requests control of the bus and the corresponding orbitation finds its PI equal to 1, it sets its PI output to 0. The lower priority orbiters receives a 0 in PI and generates 0 in PO. The processor whose orbiter has PI equal to 1 and PO is equal to 0 is the one that is given control of the system bus. So, when an orbiter receives the control of the bus, it examines the busy line. The line is inactive, it means no other processor is using the bus. The orbiter activates the busy line and its processor takes control of the bus. If the arbitration finds the busy line active, it means another processor is currently using the bus. So, this is called the serial arbitration procedure, and we can also say it is a daisy chain arbitration. Next, coming to parallel arbitration logic. Parallel arbitration logic. So, what is mean by parallel arbitration logic? So, each bus arbiter. So, in this upper side of the diagram, we are having the bus arbiter 1, bus arbiter 2, bus arbiter 3, bus arbiter 4, this slide. So, each bus arbiter in the parallel scheme has a bus request output line, and also the bus request output line and a bus acknowledgement input line, output line and output line and acknowledgement input line. So, each arbitrary enables the request line when its processor is requesting to access the system bus. The processor takes control of the bus. If its acknowledge input line is enabled, the bus busy line provides an orderly transfer of control as in daisy chain case. Okay, the request lines from your from 4 orbiters going into the 4×2 priority encoder. The output of the encoder generates a 2-bit code with represents the highest priority unit. Among these requesting the bus, the 2-bit code from the encoder output drives a 2×4 decoder which enables the proper acknowledgement line to grant bus access to the highest priority unit. So, this is the highest priority unit. So, in bus arbitration signals, so BP bus arbitational signals in in the bus arbitration signals, so BPRN or BPRO, these are used for a daisy chain connection of the bus arbitration circuits. So, busy is nothing but BUSY, busy is nothing but this signal is used to instruct all the arbiters when the bus is busy conducting a transfer. CBRQ, this signal serves to instruct the arbiters when the instructs the arbiter if there are any other arbiters of lower priority requesting use of the system bus. So, the signal used to construct a parallel arbitration procedure or bus request BREQ and priority in BPRN corresponding to the request and acknowledgement signals. So the clock B clock is used to synchronize all the bus transaction. Next, coming to dynamic arbitration algorithm. Next one is a dynamic arbitration algorithm. So what is mean by dynamic transmission algorithm? So a dynamic algorithm gives the system the capability for changing the priority of the device while the system is in operation. So there are a few arbitration procedures that use dynamic priority algorithms. Okay, so dynamic priority algorithm, that is, one is a time slice algorithm. What is mean by time slice algorithm? It allocates a fixed length time slice of bus time that is offered sequentially to each processor. To no reference is given to any particular device. So since each is allotted the same amount of time to communicate with the bus. So what is meant by time slice algorithm? So yeah, we have a fixed time slice of a bus time that is offered sequentially in each processor. For each processor, we are providing the fixed length time slice. No reference is given to the particular device. So each is allocated. Every time slice is allocated to the allotted the same amount of time for to communicate with the bus. Next, coming to polling. So when a processor that requires to access recognize its address, it activates the bus busy line and then access the bus. This is called polling. Next, LRU. LRU means least recently used algorithm. The least recently used algorithm gives the highest priority to the requesting device that has not used the bus for the longest interval. The priorities are adjusted after a no number of bus cycles according to least recently used algorithm, LRU. Okay, next, coming to rotating diary chain procedure. So the priority line is connected from the priority out of the lost device back to the priority in the first device in a closed loop. Once an arbitrary releases the bus, it has the lowest priority. Next, FIFO, first in first out. So the bus controller establishes a queue arranged according to the time that the bus request arrive. Each processor must wait for its turn to use the bus on first in first out basis. First in first out basis. Okay, and this is called the FIFO. FIFO means what? First in first out. So next, coming to inter-processor communication and synchronization. Inter-processor communication and synchronization. So inter-processor communication has two types, that is shared memory and message passing. So what is mean by inter-processor communication? In a shared memory, multi-processor systems, the most common procedure is set aside a portion of memory that is accessible to all the processors. Okay, the primary use of common memory is to act as a message center similar to a mailbox, where each processor can leave message for other processors and pick up the message intent for it. The sending processor structure a request, a message or a procedure and place it in the memory mailbox. So status bits residing in the common memory are generally used to indicate the condition of the mailbox, whether it has meaningful information and for which processor it is intended. The receiving processor can check the mailbox periodically to determine if there are valid message for it. The response time of this procedure can be time consuming. A more efficient procedure is sending processor to alert the receiving processor directly by means of an interrupt signal. So we can say it is the external interrupt. So in addition to shared memory, a multiprocessor system may have other shared resources. For example, a magnetic disk storage unit connected to the IOP may be available to all the CPUs. So to prevent the conflicting use of shared resources by several processors, there must be a provision for assigning resources to processors. This task is given to the operating system. So there are three organizations that have been used in the design of operating system for multiprocessors. First one is a master-slave configuration. One processor designated the master always executes the operating system functions. The remaining processors denoted as slaves do not perform operating system functions. If the slave processor needs an operating system service, it must request it by interrupting the master and waiting until the current program can be interrupted. So this is called the master-slave configuration. Second one is a separate operating system organization. Each processor can execute the operating system routines in needs. This organization is more suitable for loosely coupled systems where every processor may have its own copy of the entire operating system. So this is called the separate operating system organization. Next, third one is a distributed operating system organizations. The operating system routines are distributed among the available processors. Each particular operating system functions is assigned to only one processor at a time. Okay, so this is also called floating point system. Since the routines floats from one processor to another, and the execution of the routines may be assigned to different processors at different times. So next, coming to inter-processor synchronization. So the instruction set of multiprocessor contains basic instructions. In the instruction set of multiprocessor contains the basic instructions that are used to implement the communication and synchronization between cooperating processors. Communication refers to exchange the data between different processors. In this we having synchronization. Synchronization is needed to enforce the correct sequence of process and ensure mutually exclusive access to shared writable data. Microprocessor system usually include various mechanisms to deal with the synchronization of resources. One of the most popular methods is through the use of binary semaphore, mutually exclusive with a semaphore. So what is mean by mutually exclusive with a semaphore? A properly functioning multiprocessor system must provide a mechanism that will guarantee orderly access to shared memory and another shared resources. This is necessary to protect data from being changed simultaneously by two or more processors. This is called the mutual exclusive. Mutual exclusive must be provided in multiprocessor system. One processor to exclude or lock out access to a shared resources by other processors when it is in critical section. A critical section is a program sequence that once began must complete execution before another processor access the same shared resources. A binary variable called semaphore is used to indicate whether or not a processor is executing a critical section. A semaphore is a software control flag that is stored in the memory location that all the processors can access. When the semaphore is equal to 1, it means that a processor is executing a critical program, so that the shared memory is not available to the other processors. When the semaphore is equal to 0, the shared memory is available to any requesting processor. A hardware clock is a processor. So in this when the semaphore is equal to a semaphore can be initialized by means of a text or test or set instructions in a conjunction with a hardware lock mechanism. So a hardware lock is a processor generated signal that serves to prevent the other processors from using the system bus as long as the signal is active. The test and set instruction tests and sets a semaphore and activates the lock mechanism during the time that the instruction is being executed. Assume that semaphore is a bit in the least significant position of a memory word whose address is symbolized by SEM. The mnemonic TSL designates the test and set while locked operation. This instruction TSL SEM will be executed in 2 memory cycles. Okay, that is R of M SEM test semaphore, M of SEM 1 set semaphore, test set. The semaphore is tested. The semaphore is tested in by transferring its value to the processor register R, and it is set to 1. So if the processor finds R1 1, it knows that semaphore was originally set. So if R is equal to 0, it means common memory is available. So this is called the semaphore. Interprocessor synchronization. Okay. Next coming to catch coherence. So what is mean by catch coherence? The primary advantage of a catch is its ability to reduce the average access time in uniprocessors. When the processor finds a word in a catch during a read operations, the main memory is not involved in the transfer. If the operation is to write, there are 2 commonly used processors to update memory. Okay, that is write through policy, write back policy. Write through policy means both catch and main memories are updated with every write operations. That is called the write through policy, and write back policy means only the catch is updated. Here both catch and main memories both are updated with a write operation. In a write back policy, only the catch is updated and location is marked so that it can be copied later into the main memory. So this is called the write back policy. In a shared memory multiprocessor system, all the processors share a common memory. In addition, each processor may have local memory, part or all of which may be catch. All of may be catch. Having separate catches for each processor is to reduce the average access time in each processor. The same information may reside in a number of copies in some catches and main memory. So this is called the catch coherence, and we have some conditions for incoherence. So catch coherence problem exists in multiprocessors with private catch because of the need to share writable data. Okay. So sometimes during the operations, an element from the main memory is located into 3 processors, that is P1, P2 and P3. So it is also copied into the private cache of the 3 processors. So we assume that X contains the value of 52. The load on X2 the 3 processors results in the consistent copies in the cache and main memory. So this is the conditions. So we are having in these conditions, if the processor performs to store the X, the copies of X in the cache becomes inconsistent. A load by the other processors will not return the latest value. Depending on the memory update the policy used in the cache, the main memory may also be inconsistent with respect to the cache. A store to X 120 into the cache of P updates the memory to the new values in the write through policy. So what is meant by write through policy? A write through policy maintains consistency between memory and the originating cache, but the other 2 caches are inconsistent since they still hold the old values. So that is called write through policy. Write back policy means the main memory is not updated at the time of store. The copies in the other two cache and main memory are inconsistent. So these are the two policies we are having. Next, solution to cache coherence problem. So a simple cache is disallow private cache for each processor and have a shared cache memory shared cache memory associated with the main memory. Every data access is made made to shared cache. This increases the average memory access time. One scheme that has been used to allows only non-shared and read-only data to be stored in caches, since such items are called cacheable. Shared writable data are non-cacheable. Okay. I having the diagram here in this cache coherence. So if you see this, I provide in the main memory, I am providing the, so this is the diagram. So in this cache configuration after a load on X. So if you see here, so this is the conditions we are followed here. So sometimes we are having operations on elements from main memory is located into the three processors P1, P2 and P3. It is copied into the private caches of the three processors. We assume that X contains the value 52. So X I am providing the 52. The load on X to the three processors result in consistent copies into the cache and main memory. Okay, the information whatever the values we are having in the main memory, that is copies into the three processors results in the consistent copies into the cache and main memory. Okay. And if one of the processor performs to store X, the copies of X in the cache become inconsistent. Okay. So the load of the by the other three processors will not return the latest value. Okay. Latest value depending on the memory update policy used in the cache. The main memory may also be inconsistent with respect to the cache. A store to X. X 120 into the cache of P updates memory to a new value in a write through policy. Okay. So this is the example. So here I having the whenever I provided. So first I am assuming to take the X is equal to 52. Again I am taking the X is equal to 120. Whenever the main memory is updates, so the cache also updates. The cache also value changes. So 120 X is 120 in cache of P updates the memory to the new value in the write through policy. Okay. And next write through cache policy. X is equal to 52 and okay, write through cache policy maintains the consistency between the memory and the originating cache, but the other two caches are inconsistent. So if you see here, so here X is equal to 120. If you see the difference of three these, so I am providing X is equal to 52 main memory, all X's in caches, the values is copies 52 52 52. When the value is changed, X is equal to 120 main memory. So the cache configuration after store the X in processor P1. So P1 means it will be changes, only X is equal to 120 changes. So whatever the processors here see in the processor result in the consistent. So what they are saying, whenever value is 120 in the P1, so the cache and main memory values will be updated with 120 and 120. Okay. So if you see here, so here this is the other two caches. In the cache I having the three caches, that is X, 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 X. So two caches, other two caches are inconsistent since they are still hold the old values only 52 52, and originating cache in the memory main memory is maintains consistency. Okay, this is the write through catch policy. Okay, next one, write through catch policy. In this scheme that allows writable data to exist in the at least one catch is method is a method that employs the centralized global table in its compiler. The status of the memory blocks is stored in the central global table. Each block is identified as read only and read and write. All catches can have copies of blocks identified as RO. Only one catch can have copy of the read and write block. The catch controller is specially designed to allow it monitor all the bus requests from CPUs and IOPs. All catches attached to the bus constantly monitor the network for possible write operations. Depending on the method, they must either update or invalidate their own catch copies. When a match is detected, the bus controller that maintains this action is referred as a Snoopy catch controller. Okay, so this is called the catch coherence. Okay, thank you everyone for listening. Up to here we have completed the Unit 5.